Facebook recently updated its policy to allow the explicit hate speech and discrimination against LGBTQ people. Now, while this policy in and of itself is bad enough, it becomes even more concerning when you realize that this policy change is just one event in a much bigger puzzle. And when you start putting all of the pieces together, it starts to paint a very dark picture. So in today's video, I wanted to show you some of these pieces. I wanted to connect the dots for you because I believe we are currently reading the first chapter in a very dark story. This is a book that I urge all of us to put down and stop reading before we get to a point that we will all deeply regret. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm the part-time economist, and in today's video, I wanted to talk about Facebook's policy change as well as how this fits into a larger picture. So for those of you who do not know, Facebook recently updated their policy. I am going to share an official screenshot from their official policy, right? This isn't from some conspiracy blog. This is literally their official statement. Now, what Facebook says is that there are certain actions, things that are harmful, hateful, that you shouldn't do, right? You should be a decent person. And one of those things is you cannot criticize someone's mental ability, call them abnormal or mentally ill, right? Again, be a decent person. However, what you will notice is that they recently changed their policy to explicitly allow calling people mentally ill or abnormal based on their gender identity or their orientation. Now, let's be clear. This isn't Facebook being a champion of free speech and saying that everyone can hate everyone equally, right? This isn't Facebook saying, you know, people are going to say mean things on the internet and it's good to have thick skin, right? This is Facebook creating two classes of people. People who are protected and people who are not, right? The policy, you can't call someone mentally ill, that applies to everyone, right? Everyone gets that protection unless you are part of the LGBTQ community, right? We are creating, well, Facebook is creating a group of people that can be used as a punching bag. People that can be targeted, people that can be discriminated against, and people that are not afforded the same protections as everyone else. And like I said, in and of itself, this is scary, right? Because Facebook is a huge corporation, it's a huge social media giant, and remember that Facebook/Meta isn't just Facebook, right? It's anything within that kind of conglomeration, right? So Instagram, WhatsApp, if there's any other products or services that Meta owns, it all falls under this policy. So if you have any kind of contact with them in any way, keep in mind that if you're LGBTQ, you can be discriminated against, right? And like I said, this is a private corporation. People are going to say, oh, it's a corporation, it can do whatever it wants, you don't have to use it, blah, 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 right? Whatever. The problem is that in the United Corporations of America, big business and government are essentially the same thing a lot of the times. And what we see is this hatred, this targeting, this removal of protections for a group of people that is going on with Facebook is also happening in the government. And this is where things start to get really scary because we don't have to use Facebook. It might make our life harder, but we don't have to use it. But when it comes to the government, we can't just avoid interacting with them, right? We need them to file our taxes. We need them for driver's license, things like that. And what we are seeing is that, again, this hate speech, this classification of LGBTQ people as a separate group that does not get the same rights and privileges as everyone else is spilling over into government as well. And this is where things get scary. So if you go back to the 2024 election cycle, you will see that one of Trump's most popular ads that ran over 15,000 times was essentially saying, Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you, right? This is creating, again, two classes of people. You, Americans, good people, and those bad people, right? The they, thems, the transgenders, the LGBTQ, right? Again, classifying people. Now, why am I so caught up on classifying, right? Don't we call people names all the time? Don't we assign labels to groups, right? Classification is just the first step in a broader process that leads to more oppression and discrimination. Because once you classify someone as other, as someone that is not like you, especially if we follow Facebook's policy and say, well, not only are these people LGBTQ, but they're abnormal, they're mentally ill, right? They're in a sense, inferior, right? We can't really treat them the same as everyone else. Once you start viewing someone else as not equal to you, it becomes increasingly easy to discriminate against that class of people. And we are seeing the first steps of this happening in the United States. So if you look at places like the Florida Department of Corrections, right, they are saying that transgender prisoners do not get access to medications that they need because, why? Why are they not getting access to this? Because being transgender is a short-term delusion, right? Again, they are dehumanizing these people and their ability to identify with who they are, right? They're saying, you are not a person that deserves access to this care that you need, access to care that is well regarded by the medical and scientific community to be valid. You don't get that because you're mentally ill, right? Sorry. Your needs don't matter. We see the same thing happening when it comes to driver's license, right? Even people that have went through the process, that have updated their documents, that have literally gotten court orders that say that they should be able to change something are being denied that privilege. We see examples of where people who have already changed their things are being prevented from renewing them, right? Again, this is creating two classes of people, discriminating against people. You and I, everyone else, we can update our driver's license whenever we want, right? It is our right, as long as we don't break any laws, of course. But these people are being prevented from updating their license simply because of who they are, right? And again, we're at the early stages. So what if someone gets called a bad name? So what if someone can't change their name on their driver's license, right? This is just all make-believe gender nonsense anyway, some people are going to say. I think not being able to get your driver's license is a pretty big deal, but let's go with that argument. Let's assume that it is not a big deal. Again, things get worse. And I'm going to share a clip with you. And I realize this clip may be very triggering for some people, but I think it's important for us to understand that this is the ideology, not just of some conspiracy group on the internet, not some far-right organization that meets in their mom's basement or garage, right? This viewpoint that I'm going to share with you was articulated by a mainstream political organization, one of the most powerful organizations in the US. And although we can't say that one single person speaks for an entire political party or the entire government, I think this is a very good example of kind of what the mainstream ideology of a large segment of the government is. So I'm going to play this clip. Like I said, trigger warning, it may be a little bit shocking for some of you. I'm going to play it and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. Then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
So I know that clip can be hard to watch. I know that clip can be very disturbing, right? It can make many people feel unsafe, but I think it's important for us to go through and analyze it because, again, I want you to remember, I didn't look for some far-right extremist view on the internet, right? This is a mainstream political conference, right? This represents if not the mainstream ideology, a mainstream ideology, something that is definitely going to influence public policy moving forward. And I want you to pay attention to a couple keywords, right? Notice that we have to, according to this speaker, take an all or nothing approach, right? That's very black and white. That doesn't leave a lot of room for negotiation, understanding, right? And then lastly, I want you to think about the word eradicate, right? Eradicate is a very harsh word. When I think of eradicating, I think of completely eliminating, completely getting rid of something. There's no room for discussion or seeking mutual understanding. And when you combine the word eradicate with the all or nothing approach, that starts to sound very scary. And there's always going to be people that say this is an overreaction, that I'm imagining things. But just for a minute or two, I want you to kind of go on a journey with me. And I want you to imagine how interesting, how coincidental it is that the word eradicate was chosen by a mainstream political speaker at a time when large social media corporations are making it easier to target, to harass, to discriminate an entire class of LGBTQ people. I want you to think, how interesting is it that the word eradicate was chosen at a time when the incoming administration based a lot of their campaign on creating a class of people, you and the they, thems. How interesting that the word eradicate is being chosen at a time when many LGBTQ people are being prevented from updating essential government documents to confirm their unique identity as a person. How interesting that the word eradicate was used at a time when it is becoming increasingly difficult for transgender people to access the exact same medication that is prescribed without question for people that are not transgender. How interesting the word eradicate was chosen at a time when it is becoming increasingly difficult for LGBTQ people simply to live their lives without harassment, without oppression, without discrimination. So, where does all of this lead? How does it all turn out? Simple answer, I don't know. I can't see the future. But when I look at the pieces of seemingly isolated events, I start to see things coming together. I see an alliance of government and big business, making it easier to classify an entire segment of people as others, as mentally ill, as deficient, as not having the same rights and capabilities of other people. I don't just see classification though. I see outright discrimination. I see this class of people being denied certain rights that are common to everyone else. I see outright discrimination against this group of people. Like I said, I don't know how this ends. I don't know where this leads, but I don't want to find out. I want us to turn this thing around before it's too late. I want us to treat everyone with respect. I want us to treat everyone with equal rights, because at the end of the day, we're all people. We should all be here to take care of each other, to help each other, and to do what we can to make the world a better place. So that's my thoughts. I hope you found them useful. Thanks for watching.